Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. We got Richie Bradshaw back on twice in 1 week from the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. At this point, y'all know our teams went to battle, an epic double overtime battle in which Texas came out on top 39-31. Richie's Sun Devils represented more than admirably. Like I said in our recap video, folks, they pushed us to the brink. It was fourth and season at one point for one Quinn Ewers on 4th and 13. There was a whole bunch of chaos. We're going to dive into it as fans, as people that cover these teams, and kind of those who are Sun Devils fans, those who are the Longhorn fans, get to hear the opposing side, opposing views. So, Richie, how you doing today, man? How's everything post Peach Bowl?
Doing good. I had to take pretty much all of yesterday off to recuperate. Obviously, going through airlines, you're not going to feel the best. So I doped myself up on Dayquil and NyQuil and just took a day to recoup and feel better. But it was a great trip, and it was a great atmosphere going to a brand new NFL stadium I've never been to, surrounded by burnt orange, surrounded by gold, and lots of good vibes. It was a great time. And like I told you before, we officially got the podcast rolling. This is a result I wanted the whole time. Like, would I have wanted to win? Absolutely. But the biggest point of emphasis I wanted was for ASU to go out and show they belonged on that field. And I don't think there's anyone who could disagree that ASU did not belong on the same field as Texas in that game. And that was the ultimate goal for me covering ASU was just to show, like, yeah, no, we're legit. We're a really good football team. We deserve to be out here.
Point well made, man. And before we get into that, because I want to piggyback on that, make sure you guys hit the like button, share, subscribe, the whole bit. The new subscribers that have come on board during this playoff run, thank you. Please continue to help. It's free to show love. It is free to subscribe. You don't have to, if you want to be all the way in it and have the notifications on, great. Like the video. It helps with the algorithm and helps both Richie and I as we are cross promoting each other on our platform. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will have Richie's Sun Devils information below, just like we did on the previous video. In terms of, like you said, showing that you belonged, before the game, I felt like there was a large, especially the result that happened the night before with Penn State and Boise State. And there was a narrative starting to come around of, maybe this isn't the right move for the playoff system. I think one of the themes out of this, Richie, is overreaction to just everything. I think we had, Indiana gets blown out, a few teams get blown out, and the next thing you know, it's like these teams don't belong, blah, blah, blah. Alabama should have been in it. South Carolina should have been in it. Well, guess what? They lost in their ball games too. So it's just, it's one overreactive narrative to another. And I do think you guys not only proved that you belong, but it was necessary to show the Big 12, to showcase that people are playing football in the Big 12 at a competitive level, and B, to push a team like Texas, to push a team that has the amount of talent on there. I'll give you the first thing I was dead wrong about. I thought we were going to be able to come to this football game and control the line of scrimmage and run the football. And the fact that we weren't able to do that, the fact that Arizona State played the run so effectively, really was great on both lines of scrimmages, if you ask me. But specifically, your run defense, that's big boy football, right? At the end of the day, when we played Clemson, Clemson couldn't stop us from running the ball. And most of these SEC opponents were able to run the ball against. I mean, we have a 1,000-yard back now, a 700-yard back, and Arizona State holding us to 1.8 yards per carry, 50 yards on the ground. Great toughness that was shown, and that's so. Because I know the storyline is about Cam Scatterboo and the one-man band. But you expected him to be a star. I expected Cam to get his, but I did not see us getting whooped in the run game like that. That shocked me as a Texas fan.
Yeah, there was definitely some stuff that exceeded my own expectations as well. Let's start with the Texas run game. Going into this game on Locked On Sun Devils, I made my bold predictions. And one of the things that I had mentioned was that I still expected Texas to have a quality day running the football. Think I definitely said over 100. I want to say it was around 125 for Texas. I just thought that what they had done against Clemson, we were going to not only be better, but exceptionally better. And I mean, they blew me out of the water the way that they were able to control the game. I mean, Wisner couldn't get anything going. The longest run for any Texas player, which included Ewers or anything like that, was 7 yards. I mean, ASU not only controlled, but they dominated the line of scrimmage when it came to the run game. And that was the biggest aspect that kept ASU in this football game. If we look at the first half, right, you had that opening drive, 2 plays right down the field. That was also something I kind of anticipated of like, okay, I think Texas can come out the first 1, 2, hopefully not 3 drives and go right down the field, and then it'll be up to
You
defensive
mentioned
coordinator
that in our
Brian
show
Ward.
as well. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that we would probably get off to a quick start. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Brian Ward, our defensive coordinator, would need to make the adjustments. He made them quickly. There was the punt return touchdown, and from there, I mean, you have a commanding lead, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, ASU is going to have to really claw their way out of this, and the defense held up their end of the bargain, and they did a really good job controlling everything, and Texas just couldn't get too much going for the rest of the first half. ASU was outgaining them. They dominated time of possession. They actually won the battle for time of possession before the fourth quarter even started. They had over 30 minutes. It was mind boggling. But yeah, ASU did a great job controlling Texas's run game and forcing the game onto Quinn Ewers, which is where I won't say definitively wrong, but I was pretty wrong that Quinn Ewers would not be able to step up to the occasion. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, but Quinn
Yeah.
Ewers won this game for Texas when it mattered most, and I got to tip my cap to that.
So, those of you who are still haters in some regard on Quinn, some within our own fan base, see, sometimes Richie be your own ones.
Oh, I know it.
People talking about, oh, they reluctant to give him the credit that he deserves for this game. We are talking about the context of this football game. Y'all just heard it from the ASU guy. Okay, he just said he went one. They put the game in his hands. It was clear he had no run support at that point. He had to throw, especially with no time of possession either. So it's not like he's necessarily in rhythm per se. It's one thing if you're not running the ball well, but you have 50 throws or something like that, where you have a bunch of throws to get yourself in the rhythm. He didn't really have that, so he had to make some big boy audibles in terms of protections and whatnot, which was big on the ultimately fourth and 13 play where ASU goes and sends the house and Quinn has to make his adjustments at the line of scrimmage pre-snap. But I hope people are listening to what you just said, because there was a lot of questions about Quinn in the media. I mean, you still have people like Colin Cowherd of the Volume, and I respect Colin Cowherd, but for him to say after this game that Quinn Ewers is a liability, is, to me, I don't know what football game you're watching.
Right.
And I don't know if he's trying to push a narrative going into the Ohio State stuff. I don't know what it is, but how you're watching that game and still calling him a liability is puzzling to me.
Right. And I would love to expand my thoughts on Quinn. Going into this game, I love Quinn Ewers, and I would go to war for him. I just, in my head, and one of the things that I had stated on my show, and I know I reiterated with you and on Locked on Longhorns and some other places, I said that Sam Levitt was definitively better than ASU than Quinn Ewers. That was something that I was willing to die on that hill for. My logic behind that was Quinn is great. We've seen the best of Quinn. My logic for Sam was we could still see the best yet to come. And I don't think this is a bad game for Sam. This was not a game that looked great in a box score. I thought Sam did everything he could considering the little bit of time that he had. But again, we'll talk about Sam later. My thoughts on Quinn. I love Quinn. Going into this year, I was willing to defend him, but my logic with this game was I just don't know that Quinn can win the game by himself. We know what he is and all that good stuff.
Sure.
And he played a really good game. And I'll tell you, I gained an immeasurable amount of respect on 4th and 13 when ASU dialed up the blitz. I didn't care for the play call. It is what it is. But Kenny Dillingham said himself on the sidelines, he sees Quinn check into max protect. And even Kenny's like, that's it. Like, unless we get a heck of a play down the field, I mean, he just that's checkmate. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He puts that ball up. I think it was Matthew Golden, right? That
Yeah, it was Matthew
got
Golden.
the oh my god, it was beautiful. And major props to Quinn because at that moment, like you said, not just fourth and goal, fourth and season for Texas. I want to put this in your court just because I'm curious. Where would you put that play? Let's just say the last 10 years. Most important, biggest, like, oh my God, greatest Texas plays ever, just last 10 years. That's got to be really high up
I
there,
mean,
right?
that's definitely high up in the last 10 years for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. I mean, we'd have to go back to the Fiesta Bowl with Colt McCoy, right?
Okay.
Like Quan Cosby type stuff. In terms of the significance of one singular play in regards to your season. Now, I'm not putting it up there with like the Vince Young 4th and 5. Like
I
that's a
don't think you
national champ.
can, but
No, but it is in terms of the last 10 years. I agree. I think it's probably the most significant singular play for Texas in terms of that turned out positively.
one
100%.
thing I want to add real quick. If Texas wins the national championship, that might be the play that defined the season for Texas. Am I crazy to say that?
No, no, and I think it's because of the heat on Quinn, right? The
Right.
narrative on Quinn, the can he, won't he, will he? I also think it's a narrative of the offensive line of how good they have been from a pass pro perspective. Because, yeah, you go max protect, you still got to pick it up.
Right.
They
And
picked
they
up
did a
every
decent
guy
job.
got picked up. They did
Mm-hmm.
a good job to where he really didn't. It's not like he was throwing as he was getting hit or anything like that. They picked up a blitz,
He had
as
some
well as
time.
you possibly could, right? So that's also speaks to what they've been all year from a pass pro standpoint. We've knocked them already in the run game. They got their butts whooped there, but in terms of pass protection and holding up, job well done on that part.
Oh yeah, more
Now
than
I wanna go to your guy though, Cam Scatterbo, who nearly won this game on his own, right? And the things he was able to do. Um, where do you want to start with Scatterbo? Because I feel as though as a Texas fan, I felt good about our plan. I didn't like how our defense started to where we were allowing 8, 9 play drives. I think Sam Levitt had a lot to do with that with his legs. I talked about him using his legs in our video. That was his quickness to me. I saw it in certain games, and I'm like, he can really, really move behind the line of scrimmage and just really mess up your defense. I think Cam, what we did from a containment standpoint, at least the first 3 quarters, I thought we did a good job at least keeping out the end zone, limiting the big explosive plays, things of that sort. Honestly, man, the dam broke with the snap count and the time of possession. I, no defense is built to be on the field that long, and I just could see it once we start getting hands on hips. He's a guy that's a warrior. I mean, he's throwing up, he's battling, but he's running through guys, and it's now we can't guard him. Unbelievable performance, right? That's an all time performance from him. I know it's in a loss, but wow, Cam Scatterbo just gets a wow from me.
yeah. And I've called him on my show many a times the people's running back. And the reason why I call him that is he can run it, he can catch it, he can pass it. And last year he punted it for us. So I added that in there and I added he's your mom's favorite football player. And that's what we saw in this game. He ran it. He caught it. He passed a touchdown. Like he does everything for ASU. And he's the reason that you're saying it, that I'm saying it, that a lot of people are saying ASU was able to claw their way back into this game. And look at the first 3 quarters and look at the sideline rant that he was having where he said, I'm done. This is supposed to be football, blah, blah, blah. You frustrated ASU. And you kept them in check. In the first half alone, ASU was stopped inside the red zone. I want to say inside the 5 yard line on fourth and goal twice.
Yes.
They couldn't get it done. And these long drives just weren't paying off. But down the road, they were able to capitalize on that, and that's where you see just how good and historic, at least for ASU's perspective, Cam Scadaboo is. There's an argument to be made that he's the greatest running back in Sun Devil history. He played 2 years for us, but this year was just so exceptional, and we got to see on full display what made him so good. And it's the contact balance of his ability to just bounce off of these guys. And Texas was punishing him. He was getting popped, and there was a lot of plays that against other opponents, he's able to kind of shrug those off. But, you play NFL level linebackers and defensive linemen and defensive backs, and they're going to hit you harder than what you have been.
Right.
And Cam adjusted, to his credit. And part of that, like you said, is the time of possession. They just wore out Texas, which is not something that I saw coming. I thought time of possession would be an overrated stat in this game, if anything,
Sure.
but it ended up working in ASU's favor. And Scadaboo just he dominated, and he dominated so much. We saw something that's never happened in the history of the Peach Bowl, and that's winning the offensive MVP of the game. I don't think you
Well
can
deserved.
define the success, better than that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any Texas fan out here arguing. I mean, we had some guys. We talked about the performance of Quinn Ewers.
I was gonna say, who
Ma-
would you give it to if you got to
no,
give it to Texas?
Scattaboo would have got my vote 100. Just
Oh, no.
without question.
If it had to go to a Texas player, who would you give it to?
Probably Matthew Golden.
That's where my mind went too.
Yeah,
That's where my
probably
mind
Matthew
went.
Golden.
Yeah,
I love the catches he was able to make on the sideline at key moments. The thing with Quinn threw that pick that turned out to be really really big.
yeah, the air punt.
Yeah, and the timing of the game, it was, I know he ended up getting it back in overtime and making up for it. But Matthew Golden to me was just sensational from the beginning of the game. But Cam Scattaboo had a all time, like he gained a lot of fans. I feel like. I mean, I feel like if you had asked, people were so high on Ashton Jainty all year, rightfully so. But then you kind of see they ran into a buzzsaw with Penn State and that
Sure
defense.
did. Yeah.
Um, Cam Scattaboo ended up playing one of his, gave you his greatest performance in a lot of ways, I think,
Twice it would
considering
be.
the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to factor that in. And I think he gained a lot of eyeballs for Arizona State to take the lead in overtime, 31-24. I mean, they were right there. Like I said, pushed us to the brink. Let's talk about the controversial plays, right? Because I think there's a lot of
There's a handful.
people that are, hey, that the Michael Taft targeting call on 4th and 5. There was, the block on the Silas Bolden punt. There's a lot of bickering over the officiating in this game. I will say, Richie, I don't think it was a very good officiating game, period, for either side. I think I also say this all the time. The closer the game, the more the refs are going to be involved. And when there's no margin, it's easier to look at the refs and ask for certain things, right? And so I get it, but I want to get your thoughts on the controversial plays that may or may not have impacted the outcome of the game.
Yeah, let's do it. So I want to start off with this. If you are in a position where the refs decide a football game, I don't know if you deserve to win that game. And for ASU, I have seen a lot of fans complaining about missed calls. And I sit there and I go, look, I hear you. And there was definitely some missed calls. But that goes for Texas too, or against ASU in favor of Texas. I
Sure.
did not realize suplexing your player into the end zone was a penalty. Apparently, it would have been fine if someone was pushing Cam from
Pushing,
behind.
not
Right.
pulling.
Exactly. I was caught in the moment. I thought it was the coolest thing. And then I get home and I'm looking and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a no-no. But there was some stuff for ASU that went in their favor. I thought there was a lot of questionable spots where I thought ASU was short and they ruled it first down. And like I'm at the stadium, so I don't get the benefit of the imaginary line that we get on TV and everything because we
TV
play that.
replay, multiple
Right.
angles. Yep.
So me watching live, I'm like, crap, he's short. And then they go, the ruling on the field is a first down. It stands. It's confirmed. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, What do I
I'll
know?
take it.
I'm right. So I thought that, like you said, it was a poorly officiated game, and ASU fans can be really upset that some of the calls went against them. I want to talk about the targeting in just a moment, but there was calls that did not go in favor of Texas that affected this football game, and none more so than that Cam Scatterbo touchdown. So both teams got hosed by the refs. What I want to say about the targeting, I do think it was targeting. I don't. My problem doesn't lie in that game because it didn't ultimately decide the game. Very next play, let's say it was a targeting. ASU gets the 15-yard penalty. Next play could have been a pick six. Like ASU could have turned the ball
There's no
over on the
guarantee. Yeah.
right. It's not like it wiped points off the board or anything like that. It just it would have given ASU a better position to continue controlling the clock and win the game. But you're not guaranteed anything. So that's not why I'm upset. Why I'm upset has nothing to do with this football game, believe it or not. It's the fact that you invent this rule, this targeting penalty, to protect these players because what you don't want to see is what happened to Melcon Stovall, where he is out on the ground and it's scary and everyone's hoping that he's okay. Texas players, fans, supporters are all hoping Melcon's okay, the same way that ASU fans, supporters, players are also hoping he's okay. But what it has turned into is it feels like because of how monumental the penalty is, it's a 15-yard personal foul, automatic first down, that player gets ejected. That that just alters the football game. And it feels like it is turned into a we're going to put it in the ref's hands to decide where the momentum swings. And you could say it swinged in Texas's position, whatever. I don't it is what it is. Do I think it should have been called? Yes, but you also have the conversation about Keith Abney's hit on Isaiah Bond. Like there was a lot of question marks for two targeting penalties against both teams. My problem does not come from this game. It comes from the fact that you create this penalty to protect the players. And instead of worrying about the players, you're worrying about the football game because both of those could have been constituted as targeting. I didn't think Abney's was, but I mean, I don't know. We can talk about that a little bit more, but I I was more upset even in the moment in the stadium watching that game. I was more upset with the fact that it felt like the penalty was more important to the game than it was protecting Melcon or protecting Isaiah in that
Great point.
moment.
Great point. And I think it became a little bit of a political arm because
Exactly.
you have people now going to lengths of saying the SEC got involved or Texas is getting a break in this regard and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, we're one of the most penalized teams in the country. I don't know where that narrative is coming
Sure.
from, but
Yeah.
like there's all sorts of things that you allow that people, and like you said, it did not determine the Arizona State after all of this took place went and scored in overtime. Sam Levitt is I must have been watching a different game on 3rd and 14, scrambles for a first down. I recall throwing my hat and like, what the hell are we doing? And y'all score.
Right.
So there's you talked about the blitz call, Coach Ward. Hey, what? And look, we're not trying to minimize the impact and
No,
the
no, no,
the
no,
the,
not at
the
all.
play,
Right.
not at all. But it's also I'm 100% with you. The subjectivity of the rule, the letter of the rule. Did I think it was targeting in real time? Yes. I have talked to officials about, people that interpret the rule as did he launch his body, that the where the helmet placement was, and how the I guess the targeting rule is written. I mean, I think there's still more clarification that can happen and
Hmm.
to clean this up. And I also don't agree with having it automatically be an ejection either. I
Oh, I
think there
hate
needs to
that.
be even more subjectivity to it, right?
Red card, yellow
So
card.
I agree. So, I mean, it stinks that that has clouded some of the discussion, but to me, there was a lot of fun football that occurred after that,
Yep.
where both teams still, if Quinn Ewers doesn't complete that pass on 4th and 13, Arizona State says, "Hey, we overcame that. We controlled our own destiny, and we got it done. We didn't. you don't want your team, and I think Kenny Dillingham would be ashamed if his team went out on like, oh, well, we're over here crying about what if. It's like, nah, you're trained in football. What? Next
Yep.
play mentality. And I think you saw that from both teams, which is why you ended up going to two overtimes. So, you know, that's where I'm going to leave that. In terms of what, let me ask you this: in terms of frustrations, I can tell you on the Texas side, I was definitely frustrated with our ability not to be able to run the ball and have that physicality there. But the other thing for us was putting more, the contain that we had on Sam Levitt to me wasn't good enough. I didn't think we did a good enough job adjusting. And then let's also talk about the elephant in the room. We both called out our special teams.
Yep.
Kenny Dillingham at halftime hilariously says, yeah. Our special teams is killing us right now. Just bluntly says it in his halftime interview. Our special teams is killing us right now. And I'm like, welcome to the club, brother.
Yep.
Because our special teams is killing us too. And so it's like just this the hilarious thing. You guys do a fake punt. We give up fake punts to everybody. I don't know what the hell's going on. The game opens with us. We think we have an opportunity to block a punt on the first one, and my dude jumps out of this. I don't know what type of attempt he did, jumps out the way and ends up hitting your kicker. It's just a mess out there. And then obviously, Burt Auburn, beloved Burt Auburn, our kicker, who is now kicking on both sides of everywhere but through the uprights, right?
Right.
So, man, those are my frustrations. Those are my grievances I wanted to air. What say you on your side?
You know, I had a lot of my grievances with the offensive play calling, and I love Marcus Arroyo, and I do think the second half was a much different football game. But I go to the two times we were stopped inside the 10 or 5 yard line on those fourth and go situations, and I just didn't care for the play calling. And the thing that frustrated me the most was the fourth down play calling catered to what Texas does best on defense.
Exactly. I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't
I'm like,
either.
why are they going heavy personnel? I don't understand this.
Nope.
Spread us out. We can't deal with y'all. Y'all spread out.
Yep. Even the great Cam Scattaboo, when he sees a box in a defense like Texas, it's not going to go the way you think 10 out of 10 times. Like, could ASU have done it? Sure. But am I betting on it? Absolutely not. And that's where I'm so frustrated with that first half play calling is ASU could have kept themselves in the game before the fourth quarter if they just had better execution. And like you said, spread Texas out or run the scat package, which we refuse to call it the Wildcat for obvious
Y'all
reasons.
didn't. Y'all didn't do it.
No, I couldn't believe it. Like it felt like Marcus Arroyo was more trying to prove a point of we can beat Texas at their strength instead of we know how to beat Texas kind of thing, which we saw in the fourth quarter. Like we figured out what's going to be successful versus what's not going to be successful. But this is such a different football game if oh my goodness, excuse me. If ASU converts one, let alone both of those fourth and go opportunities for you. That's where a lot of my frustration lies within this game is the play calling and the fourth and 13. I didn't hate it. I certainly did not love it. I get why you called it. I really do wish you dropped 7 in coverage, if not 8, and just forced Quinn to make a tight window throw. But it just it is what it is. That play goes in your favor, and we talk about it as the greatest play call ever. But it didn't go in your favor. So ASU fans are going to be worried about it forever. But my grievances, the majority of this game, go to the offensive play calling. I'm
Sure.
glad they figured it out later on to make it a game, but that's really where it lied for me. Was the game was always within grasp, even down 14 points. We couldn't make the
Yeah.
most of those opportunities, and that's what defined the football game.
I completely agree with you. And it's I'm saying this too because I've now watched consecutive weeks of these coaches, and I think what you said is spot on. And what I said real time was they get into a what measuring contest where
Yeah.
they want to show people how tough they are
Right.
instead of doing the smart practical thing. It's like, look, this team, yeah, like it's great to beat your chest and say we moved these guys in a phone booth, but if you don't have that type of personnel, or this team is the best personnel at what they do,
Play to your strengths.
play to your strengths. And I'm like, when y'all did that package, I'm like, did they not watch the Texas A&M game?
I
Did
guess
they not
not.
watch the Clemson game? They both, every single time these teams go to the heavy personnel against Texas in that scenario, I'm like, it's almost like I took a deep breath. I'm like, okay, I know we can defend this. When the quarterback, when this 11 personnel and you got all the receivers out there and the quarterback's running around, and then you have Scatterboo as well, that's when I'm like, I don't know how we defend this. And we've obviously been having problems. The problems that we thought were maybe not so bad in the Clemson game are bad. That that we need to clean up. Obviously, moving forward when we face Ohio State. But yeah, I mean those are the moments there where you're like, Coach, we got to get out of our own way, even from an
Yep.
ego perspective. And all coaches do. We have our same the fact that we still like to go return out the end zone sometimes after somebody scores because we're trying to create a big play instead of taking the ball to 25 bothers me because we haven't blocked it well all year. But there's certain things that you see your coaches do where like the Sark screen. We did the Sark screen. We barely completed it. It was fine, but I'm also like, that's his Green Goblin mask talking to him. When it's like, he's got to call that play or else he's a coward. Like
Coward.
all these coaches got it, man. But
Yeah.
when you watch your team, you know what that Green Goblin mask moment is for that coach, and it's all
Yep.
different for everybody.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned it's like a blank measuring contest because let's say ASU converts that, right? They do the fourth and goal and they somehow out muscle Texas to score that touchdown. Oh my god, it goes right to their heads. The thing that Texas does best, we just did that, blah blah blah. And it's like cool, I guess, but you're so worried about just out machoing, I guess, the other team. And it's like that's just not how you win football games. You
Right.
win football games by playing to your strengths and out coaching the other coach. And that wasn't out coaching. I don't even know if I would call it like getting cute. That's just getting arrogant. That was an
Yeah, it was the
arrogant play
opposite
call.
of getting cute.
Right.
It was,
I'd
oh,
almost
we're
rather
tough
get
too.
cute.
We're tough too. If they want to bring out their heavy personnel, we'll bring out our heavy. Like,
Right. And it's like,
come on,
okay, sweetie, yeah, that's great. Watch this.
man. Overall, though, how would you assess the you know Sam Levitt? Because I don't know if we've talked too much about it. I mean, I know he didn't have his weapons like down the field in terms of Jordan Tyson, who was very much missed. I actually saw his mother yesterday at the Mavericks game
Oh,
because
very nice.
the brother Jalen plays for
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland Cavaliers, who the Mavericks were playing. So that was interesting. But I don't know, man. I mean, I just think that he's going to be he has a bright future, obviously. Um, and as he continues, I think for ASU, you just try to get the guy more weapons, honestly. Whether it's the portal, I don't know what you guys' recruiting looks like, but um, I could see him being he's a tough customer to deal with. He really, really is. And I think that's, something we're going to have to deal with Will Howard at Ohio State, who also can move. We're more familiar with him. We weren't familiar with Sam Levitt because some of the angles he was able to get away from was crazy. But you know, hey man, it was one of those days where we just were able to survive in advance. Um, I know I was like, man, Drake and them, they were talking a lot on the Big 12 thing about typical Texas and all that. Do you still feel that? I know it wasn't necessarily you; it was more Drake. I mean, is that still the narrative? Is it still typical Texas, or can we at least move past that narrative, or do we still need to show more in order to get that out of some people's heads? What do you think?
I mean, I hear some of the points Drake makes, and I love Drake. We can all agree he's very much a rah guy, and he will back up the Big 12 until the day he dies. And I love that about him. What I try and do is I back up ASU, but I do my best, and I like to think I do a good job of trying to bring a a more unbiased perspective when
Sure.
it comes to sitting down and everything. And I understand some of the points he made about Texas and like when the lights are brightest and Texas struggles and stuff like that. I don't think that was this game. In fact, one of the things that I believed going into this was that Texas was going to come out and they were not going to take ASU seriously, which is where some of my comments came from that were really unpopular, right? I said, you're going to be hit like you've never been hit before. And that was always supposed to be more figurative than literal. But I mean, Texas didn't come out that way. They didn't come out assuming they were going to run over ASU the way that I thought they were going to come out that way. And a lot of Texas fans and a lot of media personnel were like, oh, yeah, no, Texas, they're going to wipe the floor with ASU. That Texas team did not come out that way. They very much respected ASU. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think ASU really got super into the game until late in the fourth quarter when everything started clicking for them. Because if Texas came out with the attitude and the mindset of we're just going to cruise right past these guys, I think ASU makes this an interesting game for 60
Sure.
minutes instead of 35 to 45 minutes of game time. But no, I credit Texas. I think they came in playing their best football. I think like ASU has done all year, they came out and played up to their competition. I don't think Texas played down. I think Texas played their best football. ASU said, we're going to play up to our competition, and that's what led to a good game. So I don't think that Texas choked. I don't think that Texas was typical Texas. I think this was just more of a statement from ASU than anything. And that
I agree.
Texas made a point of emphasis of, you know what? We are going to prove this year that we can close out those moments. And that was Quinn Ewers. Because in years previous, if you want to make that point of Texas is Texas and they choke and everything, well, I feel
They
like
would have dropped the game.
Quinn Ewers probably cost you that football game if Texas is Texas, right? But he didn't. He did something that the narrative we push against Texas, well, that just wasn't true. So I think it was much more of a statement of ASU to play up to Texas. And it was a massive statement from Quinn Ewers to go, no, we're different this year. We're not making those mistakes. Watch this. Hold my beer. Watch this throw. That's what that was for Texas.
Well, Richie, man, it was. I'm glad we were able to catch up because I appreciate your commentary and it was great getting to just get to know you over this space and this time. One last question I have for you.
Hit me.
Um, Final four, right? So we got Penn State, Notre Dame, we got Texas, Ohio State. None of the buys, none of the teams that had a bye. We had Arizona State clearly performed the best out of the teams that did have a bye, but all of the teams that played before won. I guess this is a two-part question. Number one, how would you change the model moving forward, or is it still, or is that even an overreaction in itself, or do we let things play out for the next few years? And B, out of that final four of teams I listed, who's taking this thing home in terms of your opinion?
So for part A, I don't think this playoff setup was the worst thing possible. We had a lot of blowouts for sure. We've had a lot of blowouts in previous years too. So I don't think that's the biggest concern. I don't mind auto bids for winning your conference. I don't think that should guarantee you a bye. I think if you win your conference, you can get a home game, but I don't know if ASU winning the Big 12 should have automatically given them a bye week over a Penn State or an Ohio State or Texas. I do like that you are awarding the most deserving teams over the teams that should be better in theory. Because if we put Alabama in this playoff, they just got smoked by Michigan. Let's put Bama against Texas, Ohio State. They're getting smoked. So I love that you awarded the teams that were more deserving instead of the, in theory, what do they call it? Hypothetical games, right?
Sure.
I think they got that much right. But I think the seeding definitely needs some work. ASU and Texas has been if we can just call it frank, it's been the only good playoff game. And it just so happened to be a all-time college football playoff game. Of the 11 college football playoff seasons we've had, Texas ASU, especially for not being a championship game, that's up there. That's one of the best games that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's tons of potential for that. The seeding needs work for me. For your second question, I went into the year and I thought Georgia was the best team that should have been able to win the championship. I said Ohio State was the most talented team, and there was no excuse for them to not win a national championship. Georgia, Georgia stunk. Ohio State has lived up to their hype so far. Oh man, you go top to bottom on that team. There's so much NFL talent. But I said the same thing about Texas, and I stand firm that from top to bottom, Texas is one of the best teams, if not the best team in college football. I love that we're getting Texas Ohio State. I think the winner of that game wins it all. But Penn State's playing really good football, and Notre Dame is sneaky. I think we got the best case scenario for your Final Four because I think all four of them have a legitimate chance to win it all. I will say winner of Ohio State, Texas wins everything because I think those are your two best teams. And to win it all, you got to beat the best. And here you go. Best versus
Okay.
best. 1A
That's
versus
that's
1B. Put them in whatever order you want. This is your championship team, but I'm not sleeping on the others. I would go between these two. There's a part of me, hear me out. I put this on Twitter. I said, let's see Texas just roll through Ohio State and then either Notre Dame or Penn State, just blowouts for all of them. And then Texas gives a shout out to ASU and they go, yeah, the Peach Bowl was the real national championship game. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And it's like, okay, I'll take it. So
man.
we'll see.
Like I said, man, you guys had us on fourth in season, man. I mean, there's nothing else I can say.
Everything I
Um,
wanted.
from a respect standpoint, and watching good football players, passionate football players, good coaches. I don't think anybody is can say anything bad about Kenny Dillingham at this point, and other than y'all just got to try to keep him there. I mean, I think that's the only other conversation
They did
is
get
one
the
of these big
extension in,
school.
so we got that much going.
Good. So that's the first giant step, right? Is
Yes.
keeping Coach Dillingham there in Tempe. Richie, thank you so much, folks. Thank y'all. Go subscribe to Richie's channel, Locked On Sun Devils. He is just, as you guys can see, how locked in he is, not just on the Sun Devils, but college football. And Richie, I hope to have you on more, even in the off season from here and there, just to check in on the Big 12.
It'd be my
Um,
pleasure.
and I need to figure out how to talk to Drake. I want to have a conversation with him. He's fun. I like how he sold the fight, but he does say some outrageous things that I need to
He
to
is
to, to,
great at
to get
stirring the
with.
pot. I don't
He
know if
is.
there's many better than Drake Toll at stirring the pot.
But no, we appreciate it greatly, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, the whole bit. Appreciate Richie coming on, and for my Longhorn faithful out there, y'all know what time it is. Horns always up. Hook 'em.